Parent Entrepreneur Power, conversation number 151.
Parent Entrepreneur Power.
Wait, what? Entrepreneur Power!
This is the podcast for parents juggling the tough choices required for success in business while putting family first. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Johnson, and I share the ups and downs and dirty truths of profits and potty training while chatting with successful parent entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Are you powered up? Hey there, Power Parents. Welcome to the conversation. Now, I have a return guest here who is a pretty good buddy of mine. I'm in a mastermind with this guy. I've been on the outskirts watching his, and you know, this is going to sound totally cliche, but it's been a meteoric rise. So I cannot wait to share Joey Korenman, who is the founder of School of Motion. Hey there, Joey. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing awesome. Good to be back.
Of course you are. Yes, and I'm so excited to chat with you about this today. So I know we've been talking a little bit about startups and other people that are doing stuff like my son and all that stuff. Exactly. And those things are so exciting to get you all pumped and excited about something new. But I want to chat with you about once that new becomes an actual business, how the heck does this thing work? So let's get started on that. Now, just give everybody a real quick intro. They can go back to the previous episode that you and I had, the chat we had a long time ago, it feels like, back in, I think, 50-something. I'll have it in the show notes, exactly what show it was. But to just give them a quick overview about your basic story of how you got to where you are and where you started and what School of Motion is now, just quickly.
Sure. So I don't remember exactly what state School of Motion was in last time I was on your podcast. Currently, we are very, very close. We just had a launch yesterday, and we are right there. We're going to become a 7-figure business this year, which is insane. It blows my mind. So if we fast forward 3 years ago, I was basically recording video tutorials in my home office, having literally dozens of people watch them, having no idea how I was going to, turn this into anything, and really didn't have plans to. And so now to see it grow to where it is, where we have something like 15 or 1,600 students have gone through our courses in 50 to 60 countries all over the world. We have School of Motion meetups happening in Barcelona and Brussels and Egypt and places I've never been. There's one in San Francisco that has a half dozen people in it. It's pretty mind-blowing. And the biggest thing that's changed in 2016, because I think we talked last year,
yes,
was that now the company has grown to where it's still not huge, but including myself, there are 4 people full-time at School of Motion. And we just hired our 10th part-time teaching assistant. We are also working with a development company that we're paying for basically 3 full-time developers for the next few months. And of course I have bookkeepers, I have an accountant, I have a lawyer. And when I stand back and look at it, there's like 20 people working on this thing now. And it is a real business. So, I'll do my best to be honest about how terrifying and exhilarating that's been.
Well, now you've got to give us a time frame on this because, I know that people are going to be hearing these numbers and seeing, listening to what you're saying, but they don't have a perspective of what I mean by meteoric. Okay,
Sure.
Because we talk about, overnight successes and all that kind of stuff. But this has been as close to at least the business side to an overnight success as I've heard of. But there were years of building this thing before you even created any monetary business out of it. So there's
Sure.
where the non overnight success happened. But so from the day you actually launched your first course to now, tell me the time frame.
Sure. So I started the site and I just did free content for probably about 2 years. In that first 2 years, I experimented with selling a software plugin I helped develop, realized I didn't want to do that. And I was kind of struggling to figure out how to monetize. I saw other people trying to do the same thing as me and not succeeding. So about 2 years ago, I created and launched my first course. And I did a beta, and I sold out that beta and made about $10,000 on that first launch. And around that time, I actually had the opportunity to go onto Pat Flynn's show. Jamie Tardy brought me on as like a guest because they're in a mastermind group together, and Pat and his mastermind and Jamie, they gave me some advice, and I was just so jazzed that my little business made $10,000. I never dreamed this day would come. And then by the end of that year, we had done $500,000 in business.
And that was 2014.
That was last year.
Oh, that was 2015.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
January 2015 to December 2015, from a $10,000 launch to $500,000 by the end of the year.
Yes. That fast. That's how fast it happened. And then this year has been even crazier because we've still been growing, and we launched a new product, and our reputation's been growing. I've gotten some really cool opportunities that have helped raise the profile of School of Motion. I got to host a big conference. I'm going to Seattle soon to do some demoing at an Adobe conference. And we just crossed the 900K threshold for the year, and what is it? It's the end of September, so we still got 3 months left. So I mean, revenue wise, things are accelerating. Everything's going really well, and you're right. I mean, to go from essentially zero to $1 million company in 2 years is really fast. There were 2 years before that where it wasn't making any money. However, I will say that I don't want to give people the wrong idea. I wasn't slaving away at this thing for 2 years making no money. It was a side project. I was half-assing it. Right. The second I started putting all my efforts into it, I started getting momentum immediately. Now, I do realize I'm very fortunate to have it grow as fast as it did, but it wasn't like – it didn't feel like this slog for 2 years. Oh, my God, is it ever going to turn into anything? It was that I didn't ever expect it to turn into anything. And then once I changed my mindset and I really focused on it, and, you know, I got some business coaching, and I joined a mastermind, and it was pretty crazy. It all coincided, and the thing started to lift off. And the thing is, when you find something that your audience wants, you get parabolic growth. So like 10 grand is a launch. If we did that now, I'd go home and cry.
You'd be scared. Yeah.
It costs like 3 or 4 times that much to run the company now. But like, you know, but then the next launch was 50,000. Mm-hmm. And then I remember the first time we had $100,000 launch, and it's like, eventually you kind of get used to it. We had $100,000 day yesterday. So you start to get used to it. And now, you know, like my goal from a revenue standpoint was $1 million this year. We're going to hit it. And now it doesn't even seem like that much. Like and the reason is because we're spending a lot of money.
Yeah, right.
We're investing a scary amount. But yeah, so I just want to say that for your listeners, because I think like sometimes what scares people off is from starting a business and really focusing on it is the idea that I don't know if I have it in me to slog for 2 years making $0. That may not happen. Like if you're going to slog away for a little while, like you're going to like for 3 months because you don't know anything, right? But if you have a good product and you're focused on making this into a business, it can happen really, really fast. And I'm, you know, there's a lot of examples of that. I mean, look at your buddy, John Lee Dumas, like his growth destroys mine, you know, and it happened really fast for him because he took it seriously. Like he made a commitment to like record, you know, every single day I'm going to have a podcast, and he didn't half-ass it. It wasn't a side project for him. And the second it's not your side project, that's when it starts to take off.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. But, and so what you've been talking about from 0 to $500,000 and then boom to $1 million, even though you look at this and go, yeah, if I had a $10,000 launch, I'd be afraid because it costs so much to promote and do what you do. And of course, if, Power Parents, if you're interested in what Joey does, just go to the show notes and you'll see School of Motion. You'll be able to click through and you'll be able to see exactly what he does. It's way cool stuff. It's something that I would love to learn, but have absolutely no bandwidth and patience to do. It's just not my gig. I cannot do it. It's just so incredible what you do.
And that's okay.
It's like magic to me. It's absolutely magic. So you can go through and check that out. But, it's all a matter of perspective, right? When you first started this, I remember clearly you being scared to death to even start your first webinar, to even offer your first product, and thinking, what if nobody buy? Well, I can't do all the things you said to yourself. So take me through that, from that first feeling and mindset that nobody's going to want to do this. What if I fall flat on my face? All those things, to your $100,000 day yesterday. And you obviously had so many baby steps in between, but
Sure.
Start with that first one and compare it to yesterday.
So I think what you're talking about is imposter syndrome, which is something that every single human being struggles with. I was talking, we just hired a new teaching assistant yesterday, and we had teaching assistants try out for the position so that we knew who was going to be good. And I found this guy, and he's awesome, and he's got the right personality, and he's got an eye. And I got on Skype with him, and his first question to me was, I don't think I'm good enough for this. And I was like, dude, I picked you. You tried out. I'm telling you. So that's the problem. Like, you can tell someone they're good enough, and it still doesn't make them believe it. Okay.
Yeah.
So imagine not having someone telling you you're good enough and just having to cross your fingers and hope that you're good enough. That's how I felt the first time that I did a launch. And then there were so many things. I mean, one, I had never sold a class before. It wasn't what I did. I was an animator. People hired me for a day, and I would sell chunks of my time, and that's what I was used to. I wasn't used to this new model of now I have a product and it's electronic. It's not even something you can hold. It's digital. So I had imposter syndrome about that. I had imposter syndrome that I'm selling a product that teaches you how to animate. Am I the best animator in the world? Hell no. Not even top 1,000 probably. So how come those top 1,000 aren't making classes and selling them? They should be doing it, not me. No one's going to buy it because they're going to be waiting for them to make the class. And then on top of that, what's so special about me? Why would anyone care that Joey's making a class? So I had all these thoughts. And really the only thing that pushed me over the edge was being in that Hustlers program that you and I were both in, Mary Catherine, with Jamie Masters. Being surrounded by other entrepreneurs and by a business coach who said, listen, it may work, it may not, but if you don't try, it won't work. And basically just a little swig of courage and hit and go, and then seeing what happened. And that was literally I think if I had done that and it hadn't sold a single course, I still would have been pretty happy with myself just by taking that step and trying, and realizing that you can try and fail and still get up the next morning and you're fine, and try again, and that's the beauty. Fortunately, I tried and it worked. And it was a shock. I mean, really, at this point, it's kind of funny because if you're in the motion design industry, you'll very quickly hear about School of Motion, and you'll probably meet one of our alumni because there's 1,500 of them all over the world. Back then, that was not the case. And so when we sold out our initial beta, it was really exciting. And then it started to dawn on me, all right, well, crap, now we actually have to administer a product, and now we're going to have customers that are paying, and what happens if they have issues, which of course they did, lots of issues, and what happens if something breaks, what happens if someone wants a refund? And from there, it started to steamroll into okay, well, shoot, I definitely can't do this all by myself. I had a part-time assistant helping me at the time. She quickly became full-time, and then basically became customer support until we could hire a full-time customer support person. And so essentially my mindset just kind of kept taking one small step each time. The next launch I knew we had a product people loved. We had gotten great reviews. People raved about it. And I still thought, what if I found the 40 suckers who were going to buy my course? And really, and they're just Joey fans. They don't even care about it. Maybe that's what happened. And no one else cares. And this really isn't a good course. And I'm really and you just spiral out again. And we did that launch. And then that launch, and by the way, in between launch 1 and 2, I had to hire 2 people to help me run the course because I realized I can't run this course anymore. Like, if I'm running the course, I can't build a single thing. I can't touch anything else but that course. Yeah. I had to hire help, which I wasn't good at that either. You helped me with that, I remember. And it was basically just little steps like that. Hiring people was scary. Had to do that a few times so it wasn't scary. Then we launched a second product. Now I'm managing 2 products that are very different, having to do 2 launches instead of 1. Dealing with people. I didn't make the second course. Now I'm dealing with a content producer that I'm paying a royalty to. I didn't know how the hell that worked. I had to talk to my lawyer and make a contract. I mean, every step of the business required going through an intense period of imposter syndrome, maybe a couple of beers, and then just do it. Just try. And the funny thing is, because looking back, I can't think of any true failures, even though there were a lot of times when I tried something and it didn't work. I never saw it as a failure. I just said, okay, well, that clearly didn't work. Let's try it a different way. And, and as long as you kind of inoculate yourself, against that feeling of like, well, it didn't work. I have to quit now. Get over that, then you will eventually make it as long as you keep like shuffling forward.
That's, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what I've seen. When we detach ourselves from that feeling, from that up and down, and we look at it objectively instead of jumping into that emotion and swimming around in it and letting it consume us, it gets easier.
Yeah.
So the more you do that, the more you can just detach and go, okay, this is just an experiment. I'm going to try this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll try something else. If you can have that attitude and that mindset, that is not the end all be all of the universe. And I pray, please tell me, Power Parents, you're not like mortgaging your entire house and, and draining your 401k or your kid's college fund or whatever, or quitting your job tomorrow with no savings to do this, because then you are emotionally tied, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're not doing that and you really are committing to it, but you are not tied to the outcome, so that you are either going to live or die by that outcome, you'll be fine.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite bloggers now is Scott Adams. He came up with Dilbert, and he wrote a book, and he talks a lot about his success as being kind of a factor, or like a result of the way that he approaches life, which is not goal-oriented, which is the way a lot of people approach it. It's process-oriented. And so for him, his process might be, I'm going to try one scary thing every day, and I'm going to start one new business a year. And if a business, reaches some metric, then I'm going to double down on it. And so that's it. So if you break that down, it's like, okay, I'm going to try one scary thing a day. Well, you might try something that you hate. I'm going to try, I don't know, a new vegetable, and you eat it and it's awful. Is that a failure? Should you just abandon your strategy? No, because now you learned something. You learned you don't like that vegetable. And that's a small example. He started a restaurant. Spectacular failure, right? But in starting a restaurant and having it fail, and it goes out of business, think of all the things he learned, that he now applies to blogging and writing books and self-help books and stuff like that. So if you look at life that way, really, especially, bad things can happen to you in life. In business, really, they can't. Nothing bad is going to happen. The worst thing that could happen, like using me as an example, is the industry changes, some competitor comes out that just takes my lunch money, School Motion never makes another dollar. That's it. It was a fun ride. All right. And so in that case, what happens to me? Well, I could sort of go into a death spiral and flee the country and sell everything I own. Or I could just realize I mean, I know how to like run an internet business now, and I'm a proven teacher, and I have this other skill that got me here in the first place. So actually nothing bad would happen. Like nothing bad would happen. And it's very hard to get to that point. And I know it's easy for me at this point because I'm kind of there, but if you're not there, it may sound like ridiculous to think that way. But if you can just get there, like the world's your oyster, because it doesn't matter if you have $1 million business or a $5,000 business. You can see the path to where you want to go. And if it takes you 10 years, that's fine, because you're still enjoying the path and you're still getting that endorphin rush every time something goes well. And when it doesn't go well, it doesn't tear you down because you know you learned something. So yeah, and I wish I knew how I ended up with that mindset, because I didn't always have it. Some of my friends don't have it. My family members, most of them don't have that. Most of the people I talk to today don't have that. And I think that's my biggest reason for having a successful company, is just that.
So, but you didn't have that when you did your first launch either, did you? I mean, how did you feel when you did your first launch and you were like, oh, nobody's going to buy it, it's no big deal? I mean, did you think to yourself actually logically, well, if it doesn't work, I'll just, somebody can still hire me as a motion designer tomorrow, and, I'll just stay where I am? Or did you really just be like, oh my God, please let this work? And
sure. So back then, okay, so before I launched the course, there was a 6-month period before that where I kind of got serious about School of Motion, right? So the first 1.5 years, 2 years, not serious. It's a side project. I have my day job. And then I was teaching at Ringling while doing it on side. And so finally I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I'm like, I miss running my own business. I feel like there's more to life than what I'm doing right now. I want to have the freedom of an entrepreneur and stuff like that. And I went on a deep dive and I reread the 4-Hour Workweek, and I got into Pat Flynn and podcasts like that. And I literally just started absorbing all of these stories, Noah Kagan, and Jamie, and just absorbing these stories from people who didn't see the world the same way everyone else did. So I think I had an inkling of it before that. I think I've always had that entrepreneur itch, even though I wasn't scratching it. And then for 6 months, I literally just indoctrinated myself. Every book, every podcast, Tony Robbins, bring it on, everything. So by the time I got to the point where I was launching that course, my mindset had started to shift already, because I realized at that point that good or bad, not good or bad, but successful or not successful, this launch, I have learned so much. And I am confident that if this doesn't sell, there's a reason that I can figure out and address. All of those things kind of were there in a weak kind of place at that time. And now it's all of that stuff has just been codified into my brain. And so I don't see anything in life the same way I did before. Literally, we are homeschooling our kids because we're the way education works is not good. You just see the world differently. You're
yes.
That is a problem. I have an idea for a better way to do that. I'm going to try it, because worst case scenario, we'll put them back in school. No big deal. And whatever. We just flew to London for 2.5 weeks with, at the time, I think he was 14 months old, plus a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And that could have been a disaster.
Yes.
And people told us, wait till they're older. Don't go now. And we were like, well, if we go and it's a disaster, then we'll know. And I'm sure it won't be a complete disaster. We'll still have fun. And of course it wasn't a disaster. It was awesome. And so getting over that fear of something not going exactly the way it looks in your brain is I don't know. It's frankly the key to life. I think it's the key to life.
Yeah. And I think what I hear you saying is when you took those 6 months and really just absorbed everything you could and surrounded yourself with everything you possibly could in relation to where you wanted to go, it was almost like you put on a suit of armor with all that stuff, right? Because you basically internalized it. You absorbed it, and it was like your armor. and you just went, okay, well, if these guys can do it, and, I got to tell you, they have to sit on the pot and take a crap just like everybody else.
Right.
They're no different from anybody else. So if they can do it, maybe I can too. And it's like a suit of armor. And I think a couple of things you did beyond that too. First off, you actually joined, Jamie's Millionaire Hustlers, and you took a chance in yourself there and got into a group of people that were doing the same thing. Surrounded yourself with those people, not just in your head with reading it, but actually in your space, meeting with them, making time to do it. You got a mentor, you got a mastermind group. Those are all parts of your armor that basically get you ready to do battle, if you will, and go in and do what you've got to do. And there's always something you to fall back on. There's always someone you can ask an opinion of or advice from or anything like that and say, well, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? That is like your armor, and it really does help you change that mindset, because just like the old Jim Rohn quote, you surround yourself with the 5 people you surround yourself with are going to, I'm totally butchering it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
and that's what you did. And so now so now take me to yesterday and the mindset you have from yesterday's $100,000 day.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you brought up the 5 people quote. I was actually going to bring it up if you didn't. And it's you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And to everyone listening, I mean, you're probably, even now, the 5 people I spend the most time around are not entrepreneurs. Like, and to be honest, that's something that I feel is kind of holding me back a little bit too. Like, not that I'm doing very well, and I have a lot of gratitude for that, but I also know that I could be doing more. I could be accelerating things. I could be a better leader. I could be taking risks I'm not taking, not just in business, but in life. And it's because I don't have any model for that. Joining Hustlers was like, that was like my first foray into the world of people who don't all have day jobs and don't think of like, okay, so I'm on this road and I can turn this way or this way. Which way should I turn? It was now, which road do I want to go on? Where do I want to start? Maybe I'll skip this part of the road. Maybe I'll take a plane. Like, it's just like all of a sudden it's like you're in a different dimension. I think that's so important. So yesterday, to be honest, $100,000 day was no big deal. Like, and I'm not saying that to sort of to sound like really cool or anything.
No.
That's not it. It's first of all, there's the fact that you just sort of slowly acclimate to a level of revenue. And by the way, I'll just say, everyone who listens to your show, I'm sure knows this. There's a difference between revenue and profit.
Yeah.
We're investing in a brand new website right now. And it's actually a piece of software. It's really expensive. We're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on it over the next year, probably. It may end up costing $300,000-$400,000. So when you're spending that kind of money and you have a staff and we just actually brought everyone on the payroll, we're paying taxes for them. We have 10 part-time teaching assistants. We have, we just got bumped up in our Infusionsoft account. We have a lot of expenses. So you have to make more money to be able to even run the business at that point. The amount of money we spend each month, I never would have dreamed in my life I would make in a month ever. And now we have to make probably twice that a month to kind of be able to sustain the business. So, so I've kind of acclimated to the number. What was more special to me than the 100,000 was we actually raised our prices. And people still bought. A lot of people still bought. So it made me realize that our product is worth it. It's very valuable to people. We had a lot of new customers buy this course. We have a ton of repeat business. Like if someone buys one course, something like 3/4 of them are going to buy another one. They love our courses. But we launched a new course that's kind of targeted a little differently, and we had a whole new batch of people come in that have never taken a school motion course before. So we're attracting new customers. That was way more special than the money associated with it. And also at this point, having a launch go off smoothly feels good because launches never go smoothly. And we've done, I don't know, this was probably like our 25th launch or something like that since we started doing this. and we've kind of got it down now, and my team handles it, and we've got a full-time support person who's amazing, and just the way that it was just not a big deal. It was a normal day. I went to the gym, came home, checked my email, had a bunch of sales. I mean, so that was more interesting to me than, whoa, look how much money there is, because I know that like I also, this is another weird shift that happens eventually, is you don't look at the money coming in as yours. And it's funny, I've had to have this conversation with my wife too, because I'll tell her like, yeah, it was great, we did $100,000. Oh my God. And yeah, but that's not mine. Like I can't, like, I guess technically it's mine. I could like shut the company down and run away with it, but I'm not going to. You know, I pay myself a salary, and it's like, and we live off that, and that's the company's money. And if you don't do it that way, you're going to get into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
So that's a tip if you ever get to that point. So that's kind of where I was yesterday. And then today, I don't know if you heard my watch ding. That was a sale. Like, you know, while we're doing this interview, I mean, it's just normal now. I've kind of normalized this lifestyle now, and it's not weird anymore to wake up and be like, what time should I roll into the office? And
but that's
made 4 sales while I was sleeping. I mean, you know, I don't know. If anyone listening to this is like inspired to start your own online business from this, like that's like my dream, is to like,
that's it.
Just show you through me, like, that any idiot can do this.
And Power Parents, he's not an idiot. Just for the record, he's not an idiot, but he is a cool guy. That's just all there is to it. But you know, we haven't even talked about your family in this. I mean, yes, we were talked about the business, and yes, this is all about the business. But you, like you said, what time are you going to roll into the office? What are you going to do with the kids today? And they are just cutie patooties beyond belief. But you know, and your wife, and taking this trip, and I know you do a lot of things with them, like go to Disney World on a Thursday or whatever. Yeah. So, you know, this is your lifestyle, but you know, if you didn't put on that armor, you would not have been able to wake up and just let go of all the things that you need to let go of. In 25 launches, this is the first time a launch went totally smoothly. That's major.
Yeah.
That I mean, most of us look at this and go, oh, okay, so the next time it'll go smoothly. No, 25 times later, it'll go smoothly. And if you didn't have that armor on beforehand, you're gonna go insane, because you're gonna be like, oh, I'm so terrible, and it's just so awful, and blah blah. No matter how much money you make. So wow, that's incredible. So tell me what changes have happened in your family along that time, because I'm sure they had to adapt, especially homeschooling, and now because you've got little ones, and I mean, you know, so this mindset, and thank you for saying the fact that once you started this process, it's like a whole other dimension.
Yeah.
And you don't even know about that dimension until you start this process.
Yeah.
You don't even know what's possible until you open that door and open that Pandora's box, or whatever you want to call it. So now take me to your family. How has that changed?
So here's a funny example. This happened yesterday. So like I try to explain, it's the hardest thing to explain to a non-entrepreneur, that this whole mindset thing of like, I think the reason that entrepreneurs like to self-associate as an entrepreneur, it's not even because of you may have a successful business, whoop-de-doo, lots of people do. It's more about the way you look at the world. So yesterday, my son Elliot, he's now 21 months. He got a couple of shots at his checkup, and one of them had a reaction, and you know, turns red, and he's crying, he hates it. And it turns really bright red, and there's this big red spot on his leg, and it swells up really big. Yeah. So we're like, oh no, is this like bad? Like, is this normal, or should we like take him to the doctor? So we live about a half hour from our pediatrician. It's a pain, you know, it's a pain. So we try not to go if we don't need to. And my wife's like, should I bring him in? And I'm like, no, take a picture of it and like send the picture to the pediatrician. And she calls the pediatrician's office, and they're like, wait, you want to send us a picture? Well, wait, we don't have like a system for that. Like, wait, there's not like a manual on how to accept a picture from a patient. And I'm like, so you want us to drive a half hour to show you his leg? I can take a photo of it. Like, just give me your phone number. And it was just so crazy to me. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to make an app that does this. Like, and literally like that's 100 times a day, something like that happens where I'm like, why is this so stupid? Why do people... you know? And so anyway, so that's trickled in many areas of our life. I mean, it started, it started even before I launched like when I started to sort of see glimmers of this, when I read the 4-Hour Workweek, which I highly recommend. If you can get past the title of it. That book changed my life. But when I read that, and me and my wife sat down and we talked about it, and there was a lot of things that we were doing that, like, when we sat down for 10 seconds and said, is this really where we want to go? It made no sense. We left Massachusetts. We moved to Florida. That's when I really, like, we sold one of our cars and I bought a bike so I could bike to work every day. Like, everything changed. The whole lifestyle changed. And my wife's really kind of, she's kind of trailed behind me. Like, because I'm way more into all this, like, stuff. She's into it, but not like me.
Yeah.
But then every once in a while we'll have a chat. Like the other day, actually, we were talking about, she was having an issue with one of her buddies who every once in a while gives her a little bit of a guilt trip about the homeschooling thing. A lot of people don't understand the homeschooling thing. I didn't understand it until we started doing it.
Right.
And sometimes, every once in a while, we'll get a little bit of a guilt trip about it. And whenever that happens, my wife feels guilty and we talk about it. And I said, look, you have to understand that the way that we look at the world and the way it works is so normal to us.
Yeah.
The thought that, like, I don't think my 6-year-old needs to be inside 8 hours a day and then given homework. And it's fine if your kid does that. That's totally fine. I don't think it has to be that way. It can be that way, but we don't want it to be that way. We want it to be different. We'd rather not do that and instead do what we did last Friday and take them to, like, this old log cabin village where they churn butter and stuff, and they can learn about, like, the Native Americans that lived in Florida, and not just read about it, but actually go and, like, do some stuff. And none of our friends, not none, some of our friends don't see it that way, and they never will, and we'll never convince them. And the problem is, when you hang around people like that too long, it warps your own worldview. And that's where that quote comes in. You're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I said that to my wife, and like, this light bulb went off. She was like, whoa, I never thought about it like that. And I'm like, and we should be thinking about that for our kids too.
Yes.
Because I want my kids to be like your kid. Like, like, that's what I want. I want my daughter in college editing podcasts, when everyone else is out, like, trying to find a fake ID or something.
Yeah. Or working at the local, grocery store, bagging groceries, looking bored, stiff, hating their life. And that's all he talks about is, Mom, all my friends hate their jobs, hate them, don't want to go, and deal with the public and blah, blah. And he's like, and I get to sit here in my pajamas.
Yeah.
And edit podcasts, listen to incredible people talk about business and make money.
Yeah. But you don't get that, like, as a kid, to have that mindset is super rare. And the reason your son has that is because he's your son and you've taught him that. And it's great that he actually manages to hang on to that, being around people in college that don't have that mindset at all. And frankly, what's going to end up happening is he's going to be such a positive influence on them, because they're going to see what happens when you stop looking at the world as, like, this, this tiny little hallway where you can go this way or backwards. And it's like, well, you need to work at a grocery store once in your life. It builds character. You don't have to. Like, no, you don't actually. Like,
I have to tell you, those were my husband's very words. I'm not kidding. Those were his very words when we started this whole process. And I just shut my mouth and went, you know what? Talking to my son, you know what, love? I believe you can do anything you set your mind to.
Yeah.
And he had to choose. Do I go supposedly build character working at a job, or do I follow my own path?
Yeah.
And he has more character. He's already built that, because he still has to work for people. He has to answer to people. He has to do the job no matter how long it takes, or how tired he is, or if it's midnight and he just finished studying for a test. He still has to do the work. So that's kind of bull.
And he's still in college, and he's a freshman, and he's gonna have professors that stink, and
Yes.
don't like him and assign too much homework.
Yes.
And there's going to be jerks he has to deal with. And that's all going to happen anyway.
Yep,
and
that's
maybe,
right.
if he's a musician, if he's in a band, he's going to have to try out. He's not going to make first chair the first year. I mean, like, all of those things are going to build character.
That's right.
Never mind the way your dad did it and your grandfather did it. That's
Yes.
the way you're going to do it. I don't see the
You
world
know
that
what?
way anymore.
Yeah. And my husband, after that, this was months ago, obviously, about probably 4 months ago. And after that, and now that he's seen the progress that my son has made in that business, and of course, he sees my business. But of course, with me, it's different because I'm his wife, and it's like, yeah, whatever, I guess that works, that kind of thing. But now that it's somebody else that he knows, and he's seeing this from the outside going, whoa, this really does work. And I'm like, duh. What have I been doing here all day?
That is a perfect example. Like, because I'm assuming that the 5 people your husband spends the most time around aren't entrepreneurs. You're one of them.
That's right.
But there's 4 others that are not, right?
Are not.
And it's funny. It's the same. My dad, he's a surgeon. He's about to retire. So very sort of, kind of a mix. He had his own practice, so he's sort of a businessman, but it's still a more traditional route, right? You go to college, you go to med school,
Yes.
you become an intern, and then when you're 30, you start making money, and all of these things. And he has always been super supportive, but he did not get what the heck I was doing for the longest time. He did not understand it at all. And he never tried to talk me out of it. Like, to my family's credit, none of them ever tried to talk me out of quitting my job and doing this kind of thing. But none of them got it either until pretty recently, I think, when, my dad was visiting and we were playing golf and my watch dinged because we got a sale, and it was like, oh my God, I get it. Like, man, he's like, you did it right. Why didn't I do it this way? And a lot of people have that reaction because the thought that you trading your time for money is the way you make a living. I mean, that's just ingrained in you. It's drilled into you from birth almost, in America anyway. Probably in other parts of the country too. And it's very hard to get past that. And once and that's why you need people. You need to look at people that have done it, and that's why I kind of indoctrinated myself with podcasts and books and stuff, because I didn't know a single person who had done that. Zero.
Right.
And frankly, until I joined that Hustlers program, and I started the mastermind with you and with Scott and with other people, I didn't know anybody. And I still barely know anybody, but even knowing people online is enough. And now I'm still in the mastermind with you. Obviously, I'm in another mastermind that Jamie runs, this time with business owners who all have 6-figure businesses. And it's crazy. Like, the other day we had a call, so I have a book coming out. It's another little fun story another time. But I asked them, I was like, hey, so I have this book coming out. I have some questions about how to market it and this and that. Every single one of them has written a book and knows how to market a book. And it's like, that's, all of them. And some of them are bestsellers and have sold thousands and thousands. And it's like, if you can find a way, beg, steal, borrow, pay, it doesn't matter. Find a way to connect with people who see the world the way you want to see the world, even if you don't see it that way yet. Change your life real fast. And read the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yes. And, I have to say, with that, to my husband's credit, he is the same as your father. It's, he is a tax accountant. You go to school, you get a license, you trade your time for money. Yeah. With seeing these situations now with my son and myself, a seed has been planted that there is another way. And I have a skill and a knowledge. And what can I do with that knowledge? Yeah. And as long as I've done that, I can die happy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now.
You've peeled the onion a little.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If nothing else changes, I feel really good about that. But so to your point, power parents, if exactly what Joey said, and I know you don't know him from anybody, but I do. And you're hearing my voice every week on this podcast, and you think I might be somebody, I don't know, but we're regular people. We have had to go through the exact same things you're going through. And if we can do it, you can. You really can. Wow, Joey, thank you so much for spending this time with me again. I can't wait till your book comes out. I know we didn't really get to talk about it much, but we will be promoting it when it comes out, because it's I know it's going to be incredible. And you did that one right too, and we'll talk about how you did that too at Power Parents. That's a little tease about the next time when we talk. When Joey's book starts coming out, I have to tell you that story of how that all happened. But thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for showing us that yes, a regular Joe E can make this work, and showing us the mindset change you had to make. I really appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for having me back.
Okay, Power Parents, I know this sounds like it's been intentional, but it hasn't been. It just happens to be that the last several podcast interviews I've done have all been around the same theme and the same changes that I've been experiencing and my guests have been experiencing, and that is mindset. And it really isn't that big of a change. We do it when our kids grow. We do the same thing. We have to change our mindset as our kids age and become more independent. And we have to do the same thing with our businesses. So I sincerely hope you enjoyed listening to my chat with Joey. I love this guy. He is doing incredible things. And I'm so blessed to be on the inside of watching this, because it makes me realize, as I've seen him go from less than $50,000 a year, actually around $5,000 a year from this business to the $1 million mark. I've seen the mindset shifts he's had to make, and he's seen mine, and it really keeps me grounded. It keeps me humble to the fact that each of us little human beings here wandering this earth are really no different. So I hope it shows you that same thing. All right, you know where the show notes are. I know I mentioned a couple of things. I definitely want to share with you Joey's book when it comes live. But go to the show notes and everything will be there. ParentEntrepreneurSuccess.com/PEP151. And in the meantime, enjoy the journey. To get powered up for your day, just go to ParentEntrepreneurPower.com and listen to any one of the over 100 episodes we've had so far with amazing entrepreneurs just like you. It might just help you feel like a grown-up again.